They laughed when he picked it up. Just a homeless man with nothing but holes in his shoes and a plastic bag full of cans. To them, he was invisible, worthless. But in his hands, he held something that didn't belong to him. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video and let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Your support helps us share more powerful stories like this one. Now, let's get started. A wallet, thick with cash, a fortune for someone like him. He could have walked away. No one would have noticed. No one would have cared. But he made a choice that would change everything. And just hours later, the entire city would know his name. This is the story of Raymond Locke, a man society threw away until one honest act forced the world to see him. Raymond hadn't always been homeless. He used to have a job, a small apartment, a life. But one layoff turned into eviction, one medical bill into bankruptcy, one stroke of bad luck, and the system gave up on him. Now he slept under an overpass, wrapped in a torn blanket. His days were spent collecting bottles, his nights fighting off cold and hunger. He didn't ask for pity. He didn't beg. And he sure as hell didn't steal. He lived by one rule: don't take what's not yours, even when the world had taken everything from him. That morning had started like any other. He'd made his usual rounds, behind the coffee shop, the alley next to the bank, the dumpster behind the florist, and then, on the corner of 5th and Madison, he saw it, a brown leather wallet, lying just beneath a bench. Too clean to be trashed, too full to be empty. He picked it up and opened it slowly. Inside, hundreds of dollars in crisp bills, credit cards, ID, a metal card with a corporate logo, and a business card with a name, Avery Langford. Raymond's stomach twisted. That money could feed him for months, buy a coat, phone, maybe even a room. No one had seen him pick it up. No one would ever know. But still, he hesitated, and then he turned around. It took nearly 2 hours to walk across the city. The building was enormous, glass, chrome, and steel. Langford and Langford Financial Group. A name Raymond had seen on the news, something about billionaires, hedge funds, acquisitions, none of which made sense to him. But he walked in anyway, tried to straighten his coat, held the wallet tight. Security stopped him before he reached the lobby desk. One of the guards looked him up and down like he was garbage. "You can't be in here," the guard said. Raymond raised the wallet and spoke quietly. "I just want to return this." The guard narrowed his eyes. "Where'd you get that?" "I found it. On the street." The guard snatched it from his hands and muttered something under his breath. Raymond turned to leave, but something made him glance back. The guard was slipping the wallet into his own pocket. Raymond froze. He could have walked out right then, left the building, left the mess, but he didn't. Instead, he turned back around, louder this time. "That belongs to someone named Avery Langford, and I think he'd want it back." Heads turned. A receptionist dialed an internal line. Within minutes, a tall, sharp-looking man in a tailored suit stepped into the lobby. Raymond recognized him instantly, the same face from the news. Avery Langford. What happened next felt like a blur. Avery looked at the wallet, then at Raymond. He asked a few questions, confirmed the contents, and then something shifted in his expression. He didn't thank the guard, didn't shake his head and walk away. Instead, he looked at Raymond and asked, "Can I talk to you upstairs?" In a city where people like Raymond weren't even acknowledged, now he was being escorted into a penthouse office, offered coffee, a chair, a real conversation. Avery sat across from him and said, "Most people would have kept the money. Why didn't you?" Raymond shrugged. "It wasn't mine." Avery leaned back. "You returned a wallet with $1,300 in it. No hesitation." Raymond chuckled. "Oh, I hesitated." They both laughed. For a moment, the walls between them didn't matter. Not money, not suits, not the years between the sidewalk and the top floor. Just two men, talking, one with everything, one with nothing but his word. By late afternoon, a story had gone live. A homeless man returned CEO's lost wallet. What happened next surprised everyone. News vans showed up. People started asking questions. Who was Raymond Locke? Why did he return it? Why did a billionaire cancel all his meetings to talk to a man who hadn't had a roof in years? And just as quickly, everything began to change. Avery didn't just thank Raymond. He offered him something else, a hotel room, a job trial, a fresh set of clothes, not charity, an opportunity. Raymond, hesitant at first, accepted the room for the night. He showered, trimmed his beard, slept on a real bed for the first time in 5 years. And as he stared at the ceiling that night, he thought, maybe, just maybe, life was finally turning around. But the story wasn't over, not even close. Because what Raymond didn't know, what no one knew, was that someone else had seen the article. Someone from Raymond's past, someone who had been looking for him. The next morning, Raymond was invited back to Avery's office. Only this time, he wasn't alone. Waiting in the conference room was a woman in her early 30s, tears in her eyes, a photograph in her hand. She stood as he entered, looked at him, shocked, unsure. "Raymond?" she said, her voice trembling. "It's me." But Raymond froze. His hands shook. The photo she held, it was of a much younger Raymond, standing next to a woman and holding a child, his child. And just like that, his entire past came crashing back. The job he lost, the letters he never received, the daughter he never knew if he'd see again. Was it possible? Could it really be? He stared at the woman in front of him, searching for the truth in her eyes. But before he could speak, she whispered 4 words that would change everything. "She's been waiting, Dad." They say time heals all wounds. But what if time was stolen from you? What if the people you loved most disappeared in the rearview mirror of a life that fell apart too fast to fix? That's what Raymond Locke faced as he stood frozen in the center of a gleaming corporate office, staring at a woman who called him Dad. And just like that, the man who had spent years invisible to the world was now being pulled into a past he thought he'd lost forever. Her name was Alana, 33, wearing a navy coat, carrying a photo that looked worn from years of being held. A photo of Raymond, holding her as a child. She had her mother's eyes, but his smile. And when she looked at him, it wasn't with pity, it was hope. "I've been looking for you," she said softly, "for a long time." Raymond sat down. His hands were still trembling. He didn't know what to say. How do you speak to a daughter you never meant to leave? He swallowed hard. "I didn't know where you were. I didn't even know if—" Alana nodded. "Mom tried to find you for years, but then we heard you lost your job, got evicted. And after that, nothing." Raymond looked down. He had no excuses, only regrets. "I didn't want you to see me like I became." Alana reached across the table and took his hand. "I didn't care about that. I just wanted my father back." There are moments in life when time stands still, and in that moment, 2 souls who had spent decades apart found each other again. The cameras weren't there. The headlines didn't matter. It was just a father and daughter trying to rebuild something broken by silence. And when they finally hugged, Raymond felt something he hadn't in years: belonging. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Raymond moved into a small apartment provided by Avery Langford's foundation. He started working part-time at their outreach division, helping the homeless navigate shelter and recovery systems. People who used to cross the street to avoid him now shook his hand, asked for advice. He was a symbol, not because he was perfect, but because he proved it's never too late to choose honesty, to choose dignity, to choose hope. But the past has a way of echoing forward, and Raymond's past wasn't done with him yet, because just as his life was being rebuilt, another truth came to light, one that had been buried, hidden, by people who wanted him forgotten. It started with a letter delivered to his apartment one rainy morning. No return address, just his name. Inside, an eviction notice, not for him, but for his daughter, Alana. Raymond rushed across town, found her packing boxes. "What's going on?" he asked. She smiled tightly, trying to stay calm. "The landlord sold the building, said we've got 30 days to leave, no warning." Raymond felt something twist in his chest. How could this be happening now? But the deeper they looked into it, the stranger it got. The building had been purchased quietly through a shell company, one that had only been formed 3 months ago. And when Raymond took the paperwork to Avery Langford, Avery's expression darkened. "This wasn't random," he said. "Someone targeted your daughter." Raymond was stunned. Why? And then Avery told him something he hadn't expected. Because someone from your past knows you're back. The next day, Raymond received another envelope. This time it wasn't about housing. It was about court. A man was filing a lawsuit against him, claiming Raymond had stolen from a company he worked for 15 years ago, claiming he'd been paid off to disappear. Raymond was floored. He had never stolen anything, especially not from that company. In fact, it was that company that had fired him unfairly, without benefits, without severance, the beginning of the downward spiral. And now they were rewriting history. Avery's legal team began digging. They uncovered a trail of corruption, falsified records, missing emails, a hush money payment that had been processed but never received by Raymond. It was a cover-up. The same people who destroyed his reputation all those years ago were trying to do it again. Why? Because now Raymond wasn't powerless anymore. He had a platform. He had a voice. And more importantly, he had a daughter. They couldn't control him anymore. So now they wanted to destroy him. What had started as a moment of integrity, returning a wallet, had become something much bigger. Raymond wasn't just fighting for his own redemption. He was standing up against a machine that tried to bury people like him. For the first time in decades, he had a legal team, support, truth on his side. But as the lawsuit gained traction, as media attention grew, something else happened. One morning, as Raymond was leaving his apartment, a man in a black coat stepped out from behind a van. "Mr. Locke," he said, "I suggest you drop the case. You don't know who you're messing with." He handed Raymond a card, no name, just a symbol, and walked away. Raymond stood there, heart pounding, because that symbol, it was from the company that fired him 17 years ago, the same company that now owned his daughter's building, the same company that had ties to men in government. It wasn't just a lawsuit anymore. It was a war, and Raymond was right in the middle. But this time, he wasn't alone. Not anymore.